Nick, man, it's awesome to connect, bro. I've been
Yeah,
watching your Instagram content for a long time. I've listened to all your videos, and now you're sitting opposite me, well, through a screen. Bro, it's great to have you on the show.
thank you, brother. I'm excited to be here. Let's change some lives here, change some perspectives.
Awesome. So, there's one topic in particular I'd love to start with, which, just on a selfish note, is particularly prevalent to me at the moment. So, bro, in the field of bodybuilding, you have been over, man, as many gym motivation pages I can see. You've probably been on every one in the internet. So yesterday, I just signed up for my first ever physique show. It's going down June 28th.
Nice.
So, man, so let's start there. What did you learn on your journey through bodybuilding? What are the, because I know your friend Cody was heavily involved in this. He helped you with your 12-week prep and whatnot when you moved back to Tampa. So, what did you learn about yourself through that?
Yeah, the the first was I realized that I am able to do it, and that was like the first thing. I didn't get into any fitness thing related because I wasn't sure if I could lift weights, and so it kind of went. I started lifting weights, and at first, for the first 6 months, I was only lifting my left. Like right side, I can't forget it. I can't lift it. Like my arm's too short. I won't be able to lift it. And then I really fell in love with. I started looking into more bodybuilding, and I saw the physiques, and I saw the competing, and I was like, oh, like symmetry is really important. Like you need to have a symmetrical body if you want to do anything in the industry. And I wanted to get into the industry, whether that was competing or just male modeling or whatever it may be. And so we started figuring out ways where we can lift the right side. But the one thing about bodybuilding, because it's so unique, is like it doesn't happen overnight. Like it's like it's a long haul. It's a long game, and so it's really hard to stay motivated, especially if you don't know if you're doing it right, and if you don't know if you're working your muscles right. And so I learned just another level of adapting and overcoming, of just trying to figure out micro movements, isolating my muscles so I can really contract the same as my left side. But when I got into prep, like when I wanted to do men's physique, and I committed to doing a show, the big thing that I learned is, like, when your vision of what you want is so clear and so big and so massive, and you put it out there into so many people. Because I posted online, not only to my family but online, that I was going to do the show, and this is when the show was, and you guys can follow my prep, and then there's no going back from there. And so that really kept me in line. But I never missed a meal. I never missed a cardio session. I never missed my gallon of water or my half a gallon when I needed one, because my vision was just so strong of me walking on stage, and I knew that my parents were going to be there and everybody was watching online. And so it was basically just like putting myself against the wall and realizing like there's no other way but to do everything you need to do. And I didn't want to go out through prep, and I didn't want to get to the point where when I stepped out on stage, I knew I could give more than what I did. That would be like the biggest regret, right? If you're sitting there and be like, dude, like you could have worked a little harder. So I wanted to lay it all out on the line, so I didn't feel any uneasiness of when I got on stage, because I really committed. And also, I knew internally that if I would have stepped on the stage at 14, 15% body fat, looking like not so good for a competition, that people would still clap and applaud me because I have no legs and one arm. But that's not really my goal. My goal is to win always. And showing people that it's, like I always say, it's not the mind. It's not the body that holds us back, but the biggest disability is a bad mindset. And so I came out on stage at like 5% body fat, and I took third against full-bodied guys. And that was more like a testament to me that, like, I knew men's physique, they don't judge you in legs. And so, like, now it's fair play, and I'm going to come out to like win some stuff.
Man, that's so awesome. And when you talk about about not wanting to leave anything behind, you said I don't want to come out 14 to 15% body fat. I don't want, the sympathy claps. I'm here to win. And when I was really delving deep into your story, one of the things that, and I've heard you talk about your wrestling journey, and to me it seems like from a certain point you really started weaponizing belief. I've heard you say that you would rather be in the trenches than on the sidelines. So where does this belief come from?
I think this belief came from my parents just like letting me try everything, and as parents, through your actions, through your words, the way you react to situations, you're literally cultivating your kids' mindsets because they're around you. They spend the most time around you in their most receptive years. And so, whether you think your kids are listening, they're always watching you, and they're watching your actions and the way you react to things. But the way that my parents raised me was they didn't coddle me. And I think that, in the day and age we live in, there's a lot of coddling going on. And it's not in bad intent. The parents don't have bad intent, but they don't know that they're limiting or handicapping or disabling their kids by coddling them because they're not helping them fall on their face. Because if you don't learn early on that, you got to fall down to evolve, you have to try something to get better, and things don't happen overnight, then you're going to go into the real world and you're going to try to get a job and you're going to get denied and think that's the end of the world, or you're going to try to build a business and it's not going to be successful in the first 1 to 2 years or 3 years, and you're going to think that's it, I suck, all these things. And so the belief needs to be instilled early. It's better to be instilled early. And so for me, the belief was early on that, I'm going to try. Like, as long as I try and I give it 100% and I fall down and I keep getting up until I get super pissed off or whatever it may be, but at least I tried. And like I evolve, I look at different ways to, adapt to situations. I learn something. There's so much knowledge and growth in just the experience itself. And that's why, there really is no such thing as like failing, is because, if you just reword failure as just experience, just life experience, like you fell down, like it happens. But if that's not taught early on, then there's going to be a certain belief that's going to be raised within that kid, right? And so the beliefs that were raised within me was, Nick, like, you can do anything, you just have to try it. And if you can't do it a normal way, it might take you a little bit longer. It might take you a little bit, doing it different than the other kids, but you can still do everything. And even if it wasn't 100% true, my parents told me it and I believed it. And so like anything that I looked at, I was like, I can do it. Like there wasn't any, limiting belief per se or negative belief in myself that I couldn't do something. And so that really, that carried with me through my entire life, even till today, is just like, figure it out. I think it's funny too, because the majority of parents, and I'm not saying this at parents, I'm saying with parents, is like, you always tell your kid don't point or don't stare or don't ask questions. And what we're doing is we're cutting off the curiosity, which is like our biggest gift. Like the most successful people, the people that are learning the most are the ones that are willing to ask questions, even if they look dumb, but just ask questions because they don't know. And so curiosity is one of our greatest superpowers, and you don't want to rob that from your child. And so, to just give a little context of a situation like me, if your kid, if I'm in the grocery store and your kid's there, like I would rather you have your kid come up and say, hey man, what's your story? Than, you tell him not to point or not to stare because he's curious. Because then you tell your kid that, pointing is bad and being curious is bad, and then they don't ask questions anymore throughout their whole entire life.
Man, that's awesome. Do you have any stories, or are there any examples you can point to where you started out and you were, as you said, but you were just getting, man, your ass kicked. Life, there was just, you got there, maybe you wasn't any good, and then you just carried on and carried on and carried on, and you really saw some progression. Do you have any examples you could point to?
Yeah. So when I graduated high school, I was in this choice of, I can either go to LA and pursue my pranking career. I was a prankster. Or I could go to college. I got accepted to my only college that I wanted to go to with my best friend. And so it was like, you can go to college, you can go to LA. And so I moved to LA, and I moved into a 1-bedroom studio for like $1,700 a month right outside of Hollywood. It was like a shack, like in the most polite way, but very expensive. And I had a roommate that came out there with me. He was going to split rent. And I always tell people in life, whether it's your personal life or your business life, we're all going to have a plan, and the majority of the time, the plan's not going to go the way you want it to go. So the more that you can expect to pivot and adapt, then the more you'll be prepared, right? And so my roommate never got a job, and he didn't pay rent, and the apartment was in my name, and my dad always instilled in me that credit was important and rent was important, and you can't miss your bills. And so LA, I was in a lease for 6 months. I was spending all my money to pay rent. I barely buy any food. I didn't have a bed. I was sleeping on a pile of towels in my laundry. And I was eating, ramen noodles and peanut butter tortillas and like you name it, like just grinding away because I valued paying my rent on time than, feeding myself, as much as I could because I didn't want to mess up my credit. It's so funny. And I remember just like for that couple months just sitting there and be like, man, like I'm a screw up. Like I'm a screw up. Like my dad told me this was going to be hard, and he told me that I should have went to college, or all these different thoughts come into your head. And so for me, I was like, man, I made the wrong move and I failed. And I remember just like I was listening to like not that happiest music, like just like kind of like music like a chip on your shoulder and like I'm a screw up and all this stuff. It's just like crazy how your environment shapes that. So like I thought I failed. I'm like, what now? I'm broke and I have no pranking career anymore, and things aren't, because I went out there originally to be on a pranking show. I had the opportunity to be a core cast member of a pranking show, and I'm 18, 19 years old. I knew nothing about business, nothing about pilots, contracts, TVs, anything. And 2 weeks after I signed my lease, they canceled the show. And so that's why I had no income. And so like life happens, right? But I was like, man, I didn't expect this to happen. I didn't know they can cancel the show, like all these things. And so I moved home. Like in that situation, there's a couple in that situation. I realized like I got to move on, like I got to find something bigger and better. And the one thing that I look back on is instead of being, playing the victim and saying, oh, why me? I failed in LA. I looked at it as one of my greatest gifts because I now know and I learned how to live with absolutely nothing and live below my means and not really have anything and be super tight on budgeting and not spend extra money on stupid stuff. Like I learned so much by getting put in such an uncomfortable situation. So it was actually a greatest gift because now when I move somewhere else or I'm a little bit more tight on budgeting or I'm a little more tapped into my finances, it was like one of the biggest gifts because I got smacked in my face by reality, and I learned that lesson, right? And so I moved home, and so I also had another challenge of you can pity party and you can cry that you failed, or you can look at and try to do something bigger and better. And so that's when I analyzed the fitness industry, and I was like, man, I'm not in shape, but there's no guy with no legs and one arm bodybuilding, and if I do it successfully, people are going to watch. And not only are they going to watch, but you can't buy a fit body. And so if I sign to a supplement company, I could start getting paid to be an athlete, and that's more income, and that's going to make me more independent. That's the way I viewed it, rather than soaking and silking and sinking in my guilt of failing and going broke in LA. But a lot of people, if you don't have the right mindset, if you don't have the right tools, then that would have happened and you would have let that event sink you rather than keep going.
I remember an Instagram post you put up a while ago as well, where you said that originally when you started off in the speaking business, people said that you would never make $5,000 for a single event. So it goes to show, man, that you really have been, overcoming these difficulties, these challenges for a while. But one thing I didn't know about you until I really delved deep into the research is that as a teenager, you were battling suicidal thoughts. You didn't tell your parents, I heard, but you said that your brother and sister may have known. So what was this part of your life like?
Yeah, I was just like a lost kid, just like a lot of the kids, now. It's a very rough time just for childhood kids going through elementary school, middle school, and high school. I mean, they were saying that bullying used to be, really bad when it was physical, but now it's even worse because it's cyber and they can do it all the time and they do it over their phones and they're always exposed to it. But for me, I didn't really get bullied. My whole conflict was like that I hated myself. Like I was very confused of why I was born in this body and like why me. It was the big victim mentality of like I didn't understand why I'm in a world and everybody is different than what I look like. Every single person is different, and I was like, oh, girls don't like people like me. I'm different, and I'll never have a job, and I'll never be independent, and why me? Why do I have a wheelchair, and why is there someone pushing me and sitting with me in class? Like that just ate me up, and I think it's just I wasn't mature enough to see the gift that life had given me. I just think I wasn't exposed or didn't really realize or dust off that dusty trophy on the shelf of what my gift is actually is. And it was funny because my whole life, the one thing that I was pushing away, which was my body, my physical body, I hated it. I was like, girls don't like it. I'll never have a girlfriend. I'll never be in shape. I can't be an athlete, whatever it may be. Turned out to be my biggest superpower was my body, my biggest way to connect with people, my biggest way to motivate, inspire, my biggest way to, make a difference. It's crazy how a lot of the times the one thing that we're just skipping over and missing over, thinking is just another shitty attribute of ourselves, is actually one of our greatest gifts. But I don't think I was mature enough to see it. And so, that's why, and it was a good thing. It was a good thing I didn't see it, because that pushed me to do wrestling. That pushed me to amputate some of my arm to wrestle. And to give a little context to your viewers, my right limb was 5 inches longer than it is now, and my bone was going faster than my skin. So it was super sensitive, and it was like your finger. And the bottom line is, if I would have hit my arm hard enough, my bone would have came through my skin. And so I never used to do physical activities with it. I never used to, I didn't want to hit it. I didn't want to touch it. But me trying to find myself led me to wrestling. So that just in itself, thinking about it now, is one of the greatest gifts that I didn't know what my power was, because I went searching for it. And so when I went searching for it, I found wrestling. And my whole goal for wrestling was to instill confidence in me. I want to be a cool kid. I want the girls to like me. I want to be labeled as an athlete when everyone told me that I can't be an athlete. I want to do those things. And my older brother was a wrestler, so I always looked up to him. I lived in New Jersey. Wrestling's a massive deal in New Jersey. But the whole thing is, I was battling these thoughts because I was uncomfortable in my body. Uncomfortable in my body, so there was no way out, and the only way out was to have these thoughts or to take my life. And like I said, in the pre-talk, I said, I want to expedite the process, or I want to give not only the parents, but the kids the tools and strategies so they can not go through the pain, the depression, the suicide, the uncomfortableness. I can take that away from them if I give them the right mindset tools. If I give them the right mindset tools to use in that situation, like the next time, someone comes up to your kid and says a certain name, if your kid has the right tool to say, well, I'm not even going to fuel this fire. I'm just going to walk away and realize that if someone doesn't like me for who I am, then my authentic self is filtering out the type of kids that I don't want in my life anyway. But your kid will not react in that situation if he doesn't have the right mindset tool. That'll sink him. That will lose his confidence. That'll lose the way he views himself, whatever it may be. And so that's what I want to do here, is expedite the process. Does that make sense? And expedite the process and give them the exact tools and strategies on how I view life. A kid with no legs and one arm who, built himself from suicide, depressed, unconfident to this confident global keynote speaker that can present in front of tens and thousands of people. Like, if I can do it, I can transfer my operating system into your kids so they can live a more fulfilled childhood and view things as always wins and no losses and all the good stuff that I then implemented into my personal life and my business to create an abundant life for myself.
Man, this is such an important topic. I remember when I was in high school and, always before, I remember I was always the skinny guy, right? I was always, I was pretty much, I'm an ectomorph by genetics. I'm naturally very skinny. My wrists are quite skinny. I just remember, obviously being around all the sports guys, rugby, football, and it was like you'd see all these guys with bigger muscles than you, and you'd be the weak one in the gym, man, and you grow resentful of yourself. The other day I heard Dr. Will Cole say that you can't heal a body that you hate. And when I think back to the people that when in my high school, it was a pretty rough high school. I mean, we had news reporters there sometimes. When I think back to that period, I think that the people that bully and the people that really pick on other people, when I think back, I think, man, they are some of the most insecure, the most scared people that I've ever encountered. So this is what, man, I commend you. You're doing such great work in this field. So let's talk about this. What is this project in which you're undergoing in school, and what's the change in which you hope to make, and how do you hope to do it?
Yeah, so basically, my goal is to basically dive deeper on all the topics that I think about first. So for the parents and entrepreneurs is to basically, dive deep, whether that's with our group coaching or our programs that we have for entrepreneurs in business, because, the mindset a lot of people don't have, like, they think they have this perfect mindset, but they really don't. And so you need to get your mindset really dialed in, because all the time that you're thinking about negative things, all the time that you don't have confidence in yourself, and you're downward spiraling throughout your day, all that time invested to all the negative thoughts of your mind can be, then invested into your business of making more profit, to making more, financial gains in your personal life or in your business life, if you already have your mindset, dialed in. But a lot of the times people are just getting downward spiraled. They have these mindset problems, or they're going down a dark hole. But if, like, you have the right frame, if you have the right mindset and right tools and strategies, then that stuff doesn't veer you away from building your business or building your goals. So for the entrepreneur side, is basically showing them that if you get your mindset dialed in and all these tips and tricks and these strategies on how to view life, then you won't be spending hours focusing on all the things that you don't have. Then you won't spend hours, not confident on those sales calls or whatever it may be, because you know the strategies to keep moving forward despite what happens to you. So basically, all that time that you're spending in this negative place is money that your business is losing, or that you're losing, right? And then for the kids, like I said, is diving deeper on my experiences in middle school, high school, and how I overcame them, and then my mindset now to basically give them the tricks and the tips and the strategies that took me 23 years to learn, to give it to them when they're 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, so they have it way before I did. So then they're already ahead. And because I know what it felt like to be suicidal, depressed, unconfident in my skin, unconfident in my body, and like I said, I want to save them that pain. I want to save them that process. I want to save them that. And so through that, creating a community of parents and kids. And, for the kids is, being able to send weekly videos to the kids on a lesson, getting them ready for the week, getting ready for their school week. And it could be, a video that gets sent to the parents. It could be a video that gets sent to the kids, or it could be a video that the parents sit with the kids and watch together. And I'm going to put them through certain sessions of training and with questions, and have them work on themselves, but get them set up for each and every week. And so basically that they have Nick in their pocket every Sunday, when they pick it up and they have a lesson, Coach Nick is going to bring us into something and get our mindsets ready for the week. With that being said, from that program, it'll go up into, group coaching. I'm going to be doing group coaching with a bunch of kids, on Zooms, so it's not just one kid, but it's a bunch of kids. And that also creates a network of like-minded kids that they can then, riff off of and build relationships with, and, have kids that are operating on their same frequency, that are in personal development, creating a community of some dope, just kids that want to grow and learn their mindset way early on. And so that's how we're going to do it as well, is just through not only me teaching in these trainings, but then diving a little bit deeper, whether that's one-on-one or in these group coaching sessions. And then even to take it a little bit higher is eventually do retreats. Retreats where the parent and the kid comes out together, and we facilitate a 2-3 day process of masterminding goals, core values, visions for the company, visions for the family, whatever it may be. But maybe it's even a retreat to make the bond stronger between the parents and the kids as well, because right now with phones and computers and all these screens, human connection is literally being lost, and parents aren't present with their kids, and their kids aren't present with their parents, and there's no human connection. And so really just diving deep on this hole of everybody is struggling with confidence, and everything stems down to confidence. You want to make, if you're not making a certain amount of sales calls, you're probably unconfident in your ability to sell or close. If you're not taking the leap and building a business, it's probably because you're not confident in your ability to build a business. And so everything really stems down to the relationship you have within yourself. And so diving deeper on those concepts and strategies and those systems on literally how to build yourself into this character that just like leads and crushes things and doesn't really let the mind get in the way, and just wrecking everything in front of you. Because I've been grateful enough to work with the top businesses and the top athletes in the world, and realizing that everything stems down to how you view yourself, how you really view yourself. And I love that quote you said, you can't heal a body that you hate. And it's the same thing with love. Like, you can't receive the love you want if you genuinely don't love yourself. And so everything really stems down to the relationship you have within yourself. So diving deeper on those strategies.
Oh man, wow. Man, I love this. I love this so much. We've spoken on this show so many times. We think that there are so many fundamental problems with the education system, but none more so than the fact that how many people go there and are depressed. You know, I mean, I think I read a statistic the other day that it was like 2/3 of high school kids will go then at some point feel depressed. Like, why isn't this a problem in which people are talking about? But let's stay on this topic, because I feel as if this could be applicable to high school kids, and I also feel as if it could just be applicable to the general audience. So let's just look at that, for example, and let's see if you could set one actionable step for us and for our audience. If the person there is struggling with their self-image, if they have doubts about themselves, maybe they even hate, maybe to the extent in which they hate themselves. You know, man, I mean, I'm sure I've been there at some point in my life. I'm almost certain of it, you know. So if you could issue one thing to us and to our audience, to that person out there that's watching this right now, and man, they're suffering with those negative beliefs, that negative self-image, and something they could do today, what would the challenge be?
Yeah. So the first place I would start is progress. And what I mean by progress is I've realized that my lowest and darkest days come from the days where I'm not moving the needle forward in any area of my life. And as humans, we love the feeling of progress. We love the feeling of moving forward. And so I would say commit to something in your life today. Everyone listening to this, commit to one thing today that you know every day it's going to evolve you into a human being. So that means like I'm going to read 20 pages of a book every day, or I'm going to go for a walk every day, or when I wake up, I'm going to give myself 30 minutes before I check my phone and get triggered about my emails and texts. But commit to something that you're going to do each and every day, and then a week's going to go by and you committed to it. You not only physically applaud yourself, but you mentally applaud yourself. You're like, I did it. Self-praise. The one thing that we're lacking, all of us, I myself included, is self-praise. We're always nitpicking ourselves. Your internal dialogue is always so negative. Why? And so, like, when's the last time that you woke up and you looked in the mirror and said, like, dude, you rock. Like, you're amazing. Like, I love you. Like, when's the last time any of us done that? We don't do that. We're always just focused on the negative, and that's your brain. It's trained to be negative. It's trained to keep you alive. And so whether that's, committing to reading a book or listening to a podcast a day, or, doing extra soccer drills, or, getting your homework done before 5 p.m. every day, like, commit to something and follow through, and I promise you'll start feeling better. And then you'll want to commit to more. You want to commit to greater goals. You want to commit to bigger goals. And you're going to literally build confidence in yourself, because you know that when you say something's going to get done, there's no negotiation within your head. It gets done. And that's what we need to build, is basically not negotiating with ourselves and just committing to things and following through. But you got to start small if you haven't did it. And I'll also give you another thing that you can do. Additional thing you could do is you can start with, affirmations. You can start creating affirmations. And this is way much more than mindset, mumbo jumbo, unicorns, and fairy dust. But like, affirmations literally changes your DNA. It sculpts your DNA when you use it with a physiology, when you use it with language and your physiology and you're moving your body. And so what I mean by that is there's a big difference from saying, I am a force for good. Like, that's not very convincing, right? But if you're like, I'm a force for good, I'm a student of the game, I'm kind, abundance flows through me, I'm decisive, I'm evolving as a leader, I'm becoming the man I'm meant to be. If you say it with conviction and you say it over and over again in repetition, that you're going to become that person. But at first it's going to sound cheesy, and at first it's not going to sound like you, because it's not you, you're evolving. But you need to say it with physiology, you need to say it with emotion, and you can literally change your DNA by using affirmations. And what affirmations are is just adding I am before that thing. So for me, it's like, one of my new affirmations is I am a tactical speaker. I am a force for good. I am a student of the game. I am kind. I am abundance flows through me, like all these things, and so that's two things that we can literally start. But ask yourself this: do you spend the majority of your day destroying yourself in your inner dialogue, or do you spend majority of your day self-praising yourself? And I bet you the majority of your viewers, us included, we probably spend more of our day digging ourselves into a hole or saying negative things about ourselves. That's two things that you can immediately implement into your life that is going to build the relationship you have within yourself, aka confidence, which everyone needs.
Wow. Wow. Man, when you're doing that, I literally thought you were going to jump through my computer screen. I was like, whoa. Man, that's so awesome. And this is such an important topic. I don't think I've ever met anyone, and I don't think that anyone will ever completely get rid of negative thoughts. The people which I see are the happiest are the ones which are the ones which don't try to kid themselves. When I think about the happiest people, they are the ones which I've noticed, as you said, with the progress. They are doing hard things. I don't think it's possible for us to think our way into loving ourselves. I really think that it is done through doing hard things. And let's linking this back to bodybuilding, man, because, you know, I mean, as you know, man, it's like bodybuilding, you push yourself, you earn your own respect. And it's applicable to so many areas, you know, it's one more rep, one more set, one more this, one more that. And that carries over into business, it carries over into relationships, into sales, make one more call. So, you know, man, I applaud you. I completely agree with what you're saying about the self-love. But there's, you know, a place where I'd love to take this conversation now, and since we're on the topic of mindset, is you are obviously an author yourself. The book Victim to Victor, man, is, you know, the it's an amazing competition, an amazing, you know, tagline. And one of the things which I know you've said is the only disability in life is a bad attitude. You know, so let me ask you, how many people do you think right now are just walking down the street and you know, you could say a disabled, able-bodied people, but they're disabled, if that makes sense?
The majority, man. The majority, because people don't realize that they're in control of the game. You're in control of the game. And how you control the game and how you control the way you feel is your thoughts, your language, your physiology, the way that you carry yourself. Like, we are not in control, and so many are, you know, going through the motions of life and they're just wandering and they don't know why. I mean, the majority of not only entrepreneurs but human beings have no idea why they go to work every day. They just know they think they have to, or they know they have to. But that's where, like, just a simple trick of, like, creating a compelling future, creating a compelling why. Like, why do you do what you do? But it goes back to programming. Like, our whole lives, we sit in school and we sit there and we're told that we can't talk unless we get called on. And when the bell rings, you go to your next station. They're literally programming you to be a line worker, or they're programming you to tell you that you need to go to high school and then you need to graduate and then you need to go to college. And then you need to take out a bunch of loans to pay for that college. And then hopefully you get a job that pays like 40 to 60 grand to pay off those loans. Hopefully. It's not definite, but hopefully. And then people get tricked into thinking that's the only way. That's the only way. That's what they think, that there's only one way. There's only one way to be successful. And I think that is because of programming. And to get out of that is they need to be exposed into a different view of thinking, a different environment, a different peer group, or whatever it may be. Because it's funny too, in school systems we're taught to, you know, focus on our weaknesses and improve them, but in entrepreneurship and building businesses is double down on your strengths and outsource your weaknesses, right? Like, that's what we should be doing, is focusing on what, like, kids out there, adults, all of you, like, if you focus on your strengths and your passion and you combine those, you can make a living. You can make a very fulfilled living too. You can have a very fulfilled life. And that's also the thing that is destroying kids is this comparison epidemic through Instagram and through social media. So they see other 17, 18-year-olds that are, like, famous or something, that are driving these cars or in these houses, or they see the people that they follow with this amazing life, and they think that that's what success is, or that's their definition of success. And my advice would be to create your own definition of success. Like, what do you think success is to you? What's important to you? And, you know, these kids are brainwashed that it's when I get the houses, I'll feel successful, or when I get the car, I'll feel successful, or when I get the girl, I'll feel successful. But it's actually, we're chasing an emotion. We're just chasing an emotion of happiness, or we're just chasing a moment of being fulfilled. And so what if you could create a way where you can feel fulfilled all the time? What if you created designed your life where you can feel happy all the time? And that goes by, like, what is your definition of success? Like, what do you need to do? What do you need to accomplish day to day to feel successful, or to feel like you progressed? And so really it's like dialing in what your definition of success is, but really, like, at the end of the day, what fulfills you? You know, because you said the trenches thing, you know, you heard me say the trenches thing, but I would rather live a life, you know, doing something that fulfills me, and, you know, chasing something and falling down and falling and learning and experiencing something that fulfills me and makes me feel alive, than working 40 years at one job that you hate and you just think you're stuck and you think it's the only way. That's the thing. People think there's only one way, but there's a bunch of ways. There's a bunch of ways when you get clear on what you want to do, what you want to be involved in. How can you use your strengths to your best of your ability? Like, there's so many ways. I just think that we need to tap into being resourceful. I think, it's one of the biggest skills in life, not only entrepreneurship, but just in life, of being resourceful and working with what you got. But sometimes it takes, getting put on your butt for you to really tap into your resourcefulness, or you getting pushed up against the back of the wall or in a really uncomfortable situation to really unlock that gift. But yeah, I just said a lot, but there's so many things that are going on. But I think, people really need to get clear and concise on why they're doing what they're doing. Like, why? Because if you have a big enough why, like, the how is very important, but the why is the most important thing, because it's going to pull you out of days where you don't want to get out of bed. It's going to make you do the tedious things in your day-to-day, answer calls, knock doors, build a business, whatever it may be, because there's a greater purpose. You just got to find your greater purpose, and it's fine if you don't know it, but you just go throughout life and you find what fulfills you, what excites you, what makes you feel like a kid, what makes you fired up. Like, just create that compelling future for yourself.
I violently agree. And a quote which I heard you said, man, I knew was success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure.
That's from the big man. That's
from Tony.
Yeah.
Oh man, I must have heard you paraphrasing, but man, that is so true.
Because that's the thing, to touch on for the adults and the kids. But like, I know billionaires, I know millionaires, I know people that have all the houses, cars, girls, watches, whatever it may be, and they're still fulfilled. I mean, they're not fulfilled. Like, why is that? It's because they're not doing something that fulfills them, and they're not doing something that makes them feel good inside. And there's two things that we need to do in order to live a fulfilled life. The one is contribution. Contribute, and it doesn't need to be financially. It could be a hug, it could be a compliment, it could be charity work, whatever it may be. But we always need to be contributing. We always need to be giving in some way. That's going to help your fulfillment. And then the second thing you need to be doing is growing, because the universal law of the universe is you're growing or you're dying. There's no in between. There's no staying stagnant. You're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. And so if you know deep down in yourself, like, yo, I evolved today. Those days where at the end of the day you're like, dude, I crushed today. Like, I evolved. Like, I knocked that podcast out. I got that task list done, or whatever it may be. You sleep better at night and you feel better about yourself. But you're not going to feel better about yourself in the days where you're like, oh, I didn't do anything. But don't get me wrong, there are times and places where you need to recharge and you need to not do anything. I have those days, trust me. But the majority of your days, you need to be moving forward and progressing, because that's going to make you feel better and that's going to make you feel fulfilled. Because like, there really is there's no aha moment of like, oh man, I got $1 million in my bank account. I'm done. I'm good. Like, I promise you, you get to a point and you're like, this is it. Like, this is all I feel. And that's because it's not really the destination that fires you up. It's the journey. It's the journey. It's you always evolving. It's you falling down. It's the zest of life. It's the problems in life that really are the juice, the life of what we're experiencing. Because if we were always winning and we were always making money, like, life would be pretty boring. There'd be like no hiccups or no challenges. It would be really boring. And so problems are really like the juice of life.
Man, I couldn't agree anymore. There's a great quote I love from the Dalai Lama, and he said, "If you want to be happy, make other people happy." And when I think back to this podcast, I mean, when we first started it, we started this podcast with 0 listeners. We had 0 listeners. I remember, man, when we reached like 100 downloads on an episode, we were like, basically it was like party time for us. And when you were talking earlier, and you were talking about like being suicidal and things, man, I was getting emotional because I know the impact that this is gonna have, and it's giving back, and that man, I've never felt fulfillment like doing a podcast, knowing the impact that it can have, and once you have that feeling, I just don't think you can go back to a desk job, I just don't. And let me ask you, Nick, what is the greatest doubt which you may have had about yourself, which you've overcome in your life? Hello? Hello?
Yo,
can you hear me? Hello?
yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry, bro. Signal must
If
have
I
gone then.
drop.
Yo. Yeah, sorry, man. The question I said
Yeah, my
was,
bad. Yeah,
can you hear me?
yeah, we're good.
Yeah, all good, man. So what's the greatest doubt that you've had about yourself that in your life you've overcome?
Great doubt. For the majority of my life, I didn't think I would be like, independent financially. I didn't think I'd be able to work. I was like, I can't work a normal job. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to provide for myself? And so that was the biggest doubt that I overcame was, becoming something for myself. I always just felt like, oh, I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I can make it. Like, what is make it? I don't know if I can provide for myself or live on my own, and that was the biggest doubt for me that I was able to accomplish. And how I did that, like I said, was, finding more ways to provide value or finding more ways to contribute and serve. And how I did that was, through speaking, through bodybuilding, through pranking, and it ended up, taking me into my career. But it's not like I came out of the womb or I was in high school and I was like, I'm going to have this master plan. I'm going to become a speaker and do all these amazing things. But it was me seeking more ways to contribute, more ways to serve, more ways to provide value to people. And that's how I overcame that doubt. I wasn't even really focused on it. It kind of just was like, wow, I created something for myself. And so, yeah, I think that for me, my biggest doubt was like, man, I don't know if I could be independent and work a regular job and look how it planned out. I didn't have to work a regular job. I get to do something a little bit different. It's funny how things plan out or pan out.
Man, I love that. And I want to say something to you as well. I just want to touch on what you just said, but right, is that, you said that you didn't think, these things in high school, what you'd be doing now. I mean, you're the OG at the Tony Robbins conference and whatnot. and man, and the thing in which you did, you tried things, man, and answers are a reward for doing shit, right? You don't get answers by thinking about things. You get answers by doing things. So this brings me on to my next question now, which would be, man, if you could go back and speak to Nick in high school, pre-wrestling, what would you say to
him? You're enough. You're enough. Like you may not think it in this moment, but you have everything inside of you to do all the things that you want to accomplish. And that this thing, man, that the world has given you, this body that you have hate towards, is gonna turn out to be your biggest, nuclear bomb, like your biggest superpower, the thing you just drop on people and really get them to think about life a different way, more than a normal person would be able to do it. Because the one.
Yeah. Oh, please.
It was the one. It was the one thing that I pushed away and I hated and didn't want to live in anymore. And like I said, I was just too blind to see or not mature enough to see that it was the greatest gift that I've been blessed with.
Wow, man! When you talk about that, man, it gets me emotional, bro. Bro, that's amazing. How long did it take you to change your mindset on that? Like, what was the journey like for you?
On the body thing?
Yeah, on changing, how you saw yourself.
I think it only happened, 2-3 years ago for the body fully, for me to fully be comfortable with everything. And that's because, I started doing more work, more personal development work, more learning about more mindset tools and strategies and the way to view life. And, I have this invaluable perspective because of what I've been through, but I'm also a student of the game. And, I realize that I only know what I know. And I always go into, events and personal development seminars with an open mind. And if something I like, sticks, then I add it to my arsenal. But it was basically, the power of reframing changed my life with the body image of realizing, if a girl doesn't want to love on me, or if a human being doesn't want to love on me or, have a friendship with me because of my physical body, well, then this physical body is working for me. And it's just like filtering out the type of people that I don't want to even hang out anyway. It's actually my greatest gift. It's like filtering out people without them even getting close to me, so it's like another biggest superpower. But if I had a negative mindset or if I had a different mindset, I wouldn't view my body like that. I would view it as the shittiest thing, the most negative thing, how I did the majority of my life. But it's because I was able to adopt a different way of thinking. adopt a different way of perceiving the world, a different perspective about what I have or what I've been going through. And that's why, it was funny because you asked, you like, how many normal bodied people do you think are disabled mentally, in the way of them limiting themselves? And, I have this song, and I wrote the lyrics, and it was like, you see me on the street, you say, oh, he's disabled. But when we compare mindsets, now I'm the one who's able. And so it's all about programming, about the way that you view the world. The way that you view the world. And if you're getting triggered, if you're upset at things, it's because the world is different than what you think it should be. And then you just have to change your story around it. Change the way that you view things, man. Tony has a quote, change your story, change your life. Like when you change the script, when you flip the script and you make it into an empowering story, nothing's ever a loss or a negative problem. It's only something that you've experienced, you have to go through, and then you learn from. But like I said, there could be a person that doesn't have the right mindset tools and the right strategies to view life, and a problem can happen and they can let it sink them. And the other person, on the other hand, who knows how to, act to it, is grateful for that problem and embraces that problem and learns from it and pivots from it and, propels from it, right? But it's all about how your programming is and what your tips and strategies are when life kind of shits on you.
Yeah, man. It's funny because before this podcast we were prepping. It's funny you mentioned women, but my co-host and me, we were talking about you, man, and obviously, we both followed you for a while. The thing in which we're both gonna speculate on, we have no idea. You don't have to comment on this, but we think that you've been very successful with women, especially seeing the current girlfriend Cam. So that's just a thing, and we think it's the confidence. That's what we think.
Let me drop some fire. I mean, I've been dropping fire this whole time. Let me drop a bomb here. Another massive breakthrough for me, for the girls and the guys out here. I promise you that looks are additional, but what really is the massive game is your presence. It's presence. It's energy. It's the way you carry yourself. There have been so many females and there have been so many males that say, when I talk to you, I totally forget that you have no legs and one arm. That's because the presence is so big. The eye contact is so big. The energy I send with my eyes is so big that everything else blurs away. And so that was the biggest breakthrough for me. Realizing, like, dude, it ain't the no legs and one arm. It's your confidence. It's the way you come off. It's like, I didn't always have success with girls. Like, let's just put that out there. I didn't always have success with girls. And then I fell in love with myself. And then I loved my body. And then I started, Nick, you're the shit. Like, badass, bro. Like that self-praise. You are badass. And if a girl doesn't see your badassness, then there's the door. Because I already know I'm badass, right? That's how you need to come off. And not in a cocky way. It's a confident way. It's a confident way of realizing my life is already amazing and you're additional if you're in or not.
Wow. It's my world and you were welcome to visit, but I'm not going to go into your world type thing.
Yeah. I'm not going to, yeah. And that's attractive to a girl. For the guys out there, that's attractive to a girl is them just knowing that their dude's confident. Their dude knows where he wants to go. Their dude has goals, ambitions, grinds like crazy, is financially, trying to, if you're not financially independent, you're striving for it. Like you're doing stuff for your life. And girls, you want to know how to attract a stud guy? You don't go to the clubs and find stud guys. I'm sorry. You don't go there. You find them in places where they're working on themselves, their personal development, they're entrepreneurs, real estate events,
gym, conferences.
Yeah, exactly, where they're bettering themselves. But if a girl, for the girls out there, if a girl for me is, amazing energy, like has confidence in herself, or they're working on it, but has confidence in herself, it's not negative, is not, needy and always needs your attention because they know that they're the shit as well. Like, it needs to complement itself. Like, that's the thing. Me and Cam, our dynamic is super rare because we're two very independent people. Cam doesn't need to text me all day for me to know that she's there. And I don't need to text Cam all day for her to know that I'm there. I could send her a video. I could send her a voice message. But I know that she's always, grinding for her goals, and she has a clear vision of where she wants to go, and she's, driven. That's hot. Like, although her looks she's a gorgeous girl, but like if she didn't have the personality, if she didn't have the positive energy, if she had a shitty mindset, I'd be out. I try to change her first. I try to like not, I try to change her for the better, like instill some of my mindset stuff. But if she didn't take it, I would leave, or I wouldn't be there because it doesn't serve me, and she's not willing to grow. And it's the same thing for the dude. You need to be able to like always be good energy, not needy, just like, or at least work on negative. But just, yeah, like that's the thing. It's all about presence. And so to answer your question, yes, like I have switched it around. I have been very successful with women in the sense of building relationships or whatever it may be, because I finally fell in love with myself, and I know that I'm the shit in the most humble way.
Wow. man, this is one of my favorite podcasts to date, man. This has been absolutely incredible. I know we're running out of time, so I just got a few quick fire questions, and then we'll just wrap up and just talk about the audiobook at the end. What are some of what's some of the lessons? I know you spent a lot of time around Tony Robbins. Are there any what's some of the biggest impacts Tony's had on you?
Compassion. It's everything. Compassion is absolutely everything. There's so many dynamics that I could split this into. So the first one being speaking. For me, compassion is it. The reason why Tony is because he has the ability to talk in an aggressive way, and he has the ability to talk in a compassionate way as well. And that means that he connects with every audience's flavor of being communicated with, because everybody needs to be communicated differently. And you don't have to be a speaker to benefit from this, but your coworkers, your family, your friends, some people, resonate with a message when it's aggressive and it's straightforward, and others, resonate with a message when it's compassionate and it's more loving and it's more heartwarming and whatever it may be. But compassion in itself, for coaching, for building transformations in people, you need to be able to understand their world and where they're coming from. And the second that you're coaching someone, and the second that they feel that you're judging them, you immediately close the door for the transformation, and you immediately block any channeling of energy for you to be able to influence them in a positive way because they felt judging. And so everything needs to be coming from compassion. And also, a lot of us achievers, a lot of us go-getters, we're drive, we want to build businesses, or we want to succeed. When things don't go our way, the majority of us tend to go in a red area, which is like just very aggressive, like, my way or the highway, like you operate from a place of anger. That was me. And so a breakthrough for me is, instead of operating from a triggered standpoint or operating from a pissed off, way of thinking, I come from a place of compassion. I think through my actions, I think through my words. I come from a caring, loving way, trying to understand why that person said that, or why they acted, or why they didn't do the things they said they were going to do. But you got to come from compassion, because there are not a lot of authentic, genuine, caring people in the world. And so in your personal life and in your business, when you truly care, when you're truly present with your clients and your customers and your family, and they know you care, that's when you have more abundance in your life, because people know when you're bullshitting, and people know when you're trying to get $1 from them, and they're not going to buy from you. They're not going to learn from you. They're not going to want to hang around with you. But the person that comes from compassion, and they can truly feel that you genuinely want the best for them, that's when things will go your way.
That's awesome. A question which we all always ask, is a non-specific one, is imagine a scenario in which every person is hypothetically tuned into the same frequency, and you could give a short but impactful message to every person listening based on everything in which you've learned now. What would the next message be?
The universe has been around for over 8 billion years. Our average lifespan, is like 70, 80 years old. And in 8 billion years compared to our lifetime, the time that we're going to be alive is a blip. It's a little dot. It's a little speck, right? And so the fact that we're all on this rock floating around in the middle of nothing together at the same time, we should appreciate that more. And we should find more ways to just make sure everybody wins, because if we focus more on trying to provide win-wins for every person around us, our brothers and sisters of the human race, rather than trying to get over on people, the world would not only be a better place, but we would all be winning.
Man, Nick, this has been an absolute pleasure, and from myself and the entire team here, and from our listeners, man, we pay our gratitude to the great work in which you were doing. Your inspiration to us all, and I feel so great that I can say this to you, man. Do you have any asks of our listeners or anything, any messages to part?
Yeah, I mean, if you enjoyed what I said, if you enjoyed the message, and not even myself, just me as the messenger, right? If you enjoyed the message that I've shared, I'm always trying to inspire more perspectives for kids. So if you know any stages that you think the message would fit on, reach out to me, reach out to my team, because we're always trying to provide a bigger impact. And then second, if you want to dive a little bit deeper on my life story and my tools and strategies, just kind of, the next step in or a little bit deeper with me, we'll give out the free audiobook. And what we'll do is we'll just have you email the link with the podcast when you send it out. And this way you guys can have my free audiobook. And if you enjoyed my voice, you can listen to it a little bit more on the audiobook. But like I said, one of my main goals is to expedite the process, or to give the kids the tools, the strategies, and the mindset, so I can take away the pain that they're going to go through, their suffering that they're going to go through, they're uncomfortable in their body, they're unconfident. I want to be able to give them the tools so they don't have to go through what I did.
Man, that's amazing. And do you have any social media handles for the people listening now where they can reach out to you? Everything will be linked below anyway.
You guys can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, all at Nick Santonastasso. And if the last name is too long, if you type in Nick Santo, I'm the guy with no legs and one arm. There's not many of them.
Man, this has been such a pleasure, Nick. You are incredible, man, and man, I can't wait to release this episode.